Awesome. And everybody can see the screen okay?
Looks good.
Fantastic.
Yep.
So on behalf of myself and David and our team, we just really want to thank everybody for coming today. We are here to celebrate World Castleman Disease Day, which is actually on the 23rd. We do this little community gathering to kind of be able to celebrate some of the accomplishments, celebrate our patients and our community, be able to see you guys and kind of connect, share different updates that are coming up in our community, talk through the patient summit that a lot of you guys have registered and are able to come to. And just really be together. We, both David and myself, really enjoy these community gatherings where we can kind of see everybody and just be able to talk to you guys and give you updates on what we're doing, but also hear from you guys as well. So with that being said, I would love to turn things over to David, who will also welcome you guys, and then we can kind of dive into the agenda we have for today.
Nice. Thanks so much, Malava. Well, it's great to see so many familiar faces, and also great to see some names in the participant list that I don't recognize yet. So hopefully we'll get the chance to get to know you a little bit more tonight during our community gathering, and then hopefully we'll get to see many of you in person in just 3 weeks' time at our annual patient summit. So my name is David Fagenbaum. I co-founded the Castleman Disease Collaborative Network a little bit over 10 years ago, along with Fritz Van Ree, with the goal and the mission to accelerate research and treatment for Castleman disease and to really pioneer a new way of doing research that keeps patients at the center and really focuses on impact above everything else. And so really proud of all the impact we've had over the last 10 years and excited to share a bit more with you all today about World Castleman Disease Day in particular, and then some research updates. So you can click one slide ahead. Perfect. So just a little bit of history on Castleman disease. Many of you all know this, but Castleman disease was first described by Benjamin Castleman back in the 1950s. And then it wasn't until 2017, so 6 years ago, that the first ever diagnostic criteria were made. So over 50 years before, between the disease being described and there actually being a criteria for how do you go about diagnosing it. That same year, we established the first ever World Castleman Disease Day. So I guess we're in our 6th year of World CD Day. And then a couple of years later, the city of Philadelphia passed a resolution unanimously. I don't think anyone politically does anything unanimously these days, but at least there's a unanimous passing of World Castleman Disease Day in the city of Philadelphia a few years ago. And really, World CD Day is about giving us a single day of the year to just raise as much awareness as possible, to get the word out what we're doing, to raise funds from family, friends, loved ones that you think want to support the fight, and really just spread the word about the CDCN. So you can see us doing the Castleman Flex. And if you know anything about us, you know that we love to help spread awareness by doing the Castleman Flex. So please do make sure that you participate in World CD Day. And throughout the rest of the session today, we'll talk a little bit more about what does participation look like, but just at a high level, it's really about raising awareness and raising funds. So next slide. We've grown a lot over the last 6 years or so, raising more and more money every year. What's really exciting about this year is that we have a generous donor who has agreed to match every donation up to $7,500. So if you put $10 towards this, it'll get matched by this generous donor, and we'll double the impact of your donation. So really, really great time of year to donate to the CDCN because there's this donor who's matching donations, and hopeful that we'll raise more money than ever for this World Castleman Disease Day. And so just to refresh, especially for the new folks, what do we do through the CDC? And I shared earlier about the mission to accelerate research and treatment and really revolutionize the way that medical research is done. We've made a lot of breakthroughs for Castleman's over the last 11 years, and we've also been able to really speed up and change the way that rare disease research is done far beyond Castleman disease. And so we do that by focusing on immunology research. Castleman disease is a disease of the immune system, by crowdsourcing, which is our fancy word for meaning we engage with all of you to understand what's important to you, what's important to us as patients and our loved ones. So we make sure that our research is really focused on doing the things that are most important to all of us, raising awareness and funds, because obviously the research can't be done without funding, and then really trying to innovate and advance this repurposing approach, which is where we focus on the drugs that are already FDA approved and say, okay, among the things that are already on our pharmacy shelf, which of those can help us or other patients with our disease, as opposed to always being focused on making new drugs from scratch. And so our vision that we work towards, that we think about every day, is creating a world where all patients diagnosed with Castleman disease live full lives. And so that's a full life in terms of quality and quantity. We want each of us to live like we did before we ever got sick, and live for as long as we would have before we ever got sick. And I don't know if I'm going to do the second one, which is live as long as I would have, but I can certainly tell you I'm living as full of a life as I ever did before I got sick. And that's the goal that we have for everyone on this call. Next slide. Great. So I think now we're going to share a few research updates, which is, usually one of my favorite parts of these community updates is just share the science that we're doing. Both the science in my center at Penn, called the Center for Cytokine Storm Treatment and Laboratory, or the CASTLE, as we like to refer to ourselves. So work being done there, but also work being done by researchers around the world. So got a few really important papers that were led by Sheila Pearson, our amazing director of our registry for the last 7 years. During our last update, we shared the exciting news that she's heading off to medical school. So Sheila, excitingly, is moving on to medical school, and she's going to be a doctor. For us, it's a little, bitter in addition to being sweet, because obviously we're going to miss her and her full-time work with the CDCN. But she's left a huge imprint on the entire disease and the whole field. And I know that we'll continue to involve her as she goes through medical training. But 3 really important papers that have come from the work that we've been doing through Accelerate. So any patient who's on this call and that has joined our registry that we call Accelerate, your data was included in these studies. And if you're on this call and you're not in Accelerate, please join Accelerate at cdcn.org/accelerate. It'll take a brief amount of time to go through, and we get your whole medical records, and we pull out really important data from those records. And so from all that hard work, we were able to identify the most promising treatments for Castleman disease. That paper is going to be published very soon. Excuse me. We are very close to publishing a paper about all the symptoms that Castleman disease patients experience, and in particular about the journey that unicentric Castleman disease patients go through. So during our last community update, Mateo gave a really wonderful talk about the experience that unicentric Castleman disease patients go through after their diagnosis and even after their lymph node is taken out. Many times, or generally, the medical community hasn't been aware of the fact that unicentric Castleman disease patients can have lingering symptoms after their lymph node is resected. And we think this is really important to get that out to doctors and really to validate in many ways a lot of the feelings that many of you on this call have experienced. Another research update that we're really excited about is that research we did at Penn, both in my lab doing proteomics work, but also the part of our lab that's focused on repurposing and trying to find new uses for drugs using artificial intelligence, both pointed us towards a role for a drug called adalimumab that targets a cytokine in your blood called TNF. And we thought that it might be useful. It was very preliminary, but there was a patient who was really suffering in Vancouver, and he was getting ready to be put on hospice. And so I told the doctor, we very little information about TNF blockade, but if you're going to put this patient on hospice, let's take one last sort of Hail Mary shot to see if we can save him. And this drug worked really well for adalimumab. So we were like over the moon. We found out on my birthday on March 29th, and it was like the best birthday present ever. And so from, where do we go from here? Well, first off, we want to learn more about the drug and how it might work in Castleman's. And so we have a really generous and amazing donor who has provided funding to us to study this more and to better understand the role of this particular cytokine this drug might play in Castleman disease. And we are just really excited to continue to push this forward. So next update, and I will just maybe comment for a moment on how great it was and how exciting it was for our team, because it was really bringing together 2 parallel groups. So our team at Penn that does proteomics, where we measure now 7,000 different molecules in your blood simultaneously to better understand what's happening. So that team had done work, and then separately this artificial intelligence repurposing team was doing completely independent work. And since they both converged on the same drug, that was just, for me, really exciting. And I think shows the power and the reason why it's important for us to think about medicine and biology and all the things we're doing from a research perspective from different angles, not always taking the same approach. And then, okay, so then the third update is we have launched what'll be the largest study ever in Castleman disease. It's called the SPACE study. I mentioned earlier that we measure now 7,000 different molecules in a blood sample from Castleman's patients. We've now done that on 130 samples. And so that was big in its own right. And then we now are planning to do it on another 500 samples. So it'll be a total of over 600 samples that'll be included in the study. We'll measure all of those 7,000 proteins. So imagine everything that's in your blood circulating, we're going to measure the levels of it. And the reason we're doing this is because we really want to identify a blood test that can help to diagnose Castleman disease. Every one of us with Castleman's, we all had a lymph node taken out, and that's how we got our Castleman's diagnosis. But wouldn't it be great if we could do a simple blood test for any patient who might have Castleman disease to lead us to feel more confident that they might have it or less confident? We may still need to get a lymph node biopsy to confirm, but at least if we had that blood test ahead of time, I think that would lead to faster diagnoses for us. It would lead to faster treatment, and it also would lead to preventing a lot of the unnecessary deaths that happen when patients don't get diagnosed in time and fast enough. So I'm really excited about this project. It's been a lot of hard work thus far. We got a long way to go. We need to get blood samples from a lot of other diseases that are like Castleman. So you can think about all the diseases that anyone on this call was misdiagnosed with. And actually, I might ask that if you're on the call and you don't mind throwing in the chat some of the diseases you might have been misdiagnosed with, maybe it was lupus, maybe it was lymphoma, maybe it was IgG4 related disease, just throw in some of those diseases. We've got a list of over 20 that we're thinking about, but I'd love to know if there's some diseases that are on your mind that maybe someone thought you had, and they ended up ruling it out. So feel free to throw those into the chat. And then the last we're getting ready to launch 2 separate genomic studies. The first one is we'll be doing genetic sequencing on lymph node tissue from unicentric Castleman disease and multicentric Castleman disease patients. And the other one is we'll be doing genetic sequencing on blood samples from multicentric Castleman disease patients. And so if you're part of Accelerate, that means that we most likely have a piece of your lymph node. If you haven't sent a blood sample in yet and you've been in touch with Bridget, and we can throw Bridget's email address on here, please do let us know and get in contact with us. Bridget makes it really easy to donate blood samples. And obviously, we can't do the research if we don't have the blood samples. And for the last 2 studies, we've been really fortunate that we've actually been able to get outside organizations to donate their services to do this at no cost to the CDCN. And that's something that I'm really, really focused on. Obviously, we work really hard to raise money for the CDCN, and we'll always need to raise money. But the more that we can get companies to donate their services so that a project like a proteomic study or sequencing is low or no cost, or we can find a single donor who really wants to make these things happen and is willing to cover the whole cost of the study, that's better in our minds. Next slide. Great. And so then now we're going to talk a little bit about EveryCure. EveryCure is a nonprofit organization that I launched about a year ago, very much inspired by what we've done for Castleman disease in finding drugs that can be repurposed. And the reason we started it is because we realized that we don't believe any patient should suffer if there's a treatment that's at the pharmacy that could be helpful for them. And in Castleman disease, we've really made a lot of progress, but for so many other diseases, there hasn't been progress made to figure out what on the pharmacy shelf could help you or someone you love. And so we launched this nonprofit, and we really focus on 3 specific areas. The first is using artificial intelligence, I mentioned earlier, to find patterns within the world's knowledge, all of the data that we know about medicine, drugs, and diseases, and to find patterns in it that might suggest that a drug might be able to be utilized in a new way. And I shared earlier, adalimumab was the #1 scoring drug for Castleman disease. And then we use adalimumab, or right around that time, we use adalimumab for a patient. The second is to perform clinical trials to prove that they actually work. So after a patient like Al gets adalimumab and it works, and then we feel more confident in the lab that it's going to work in more people, next step is to run a clinical trial to really prove that it's truly being effective. And the last step is to make sure that people can access it around the world. The good news about repurposed drugs is that many of them are already generic and inexpensive and widely accessible. So people all around the world can can benefit from them. And that's something that's really important to us because we've probably got a few international folks on the call, and obviously we're based here in the United States, but we feel very, very strongly that that this is an international organization, and we are here to help every patient around the world. And again, towards that vision that every patient diagnosed with Castleman's will live a full life after their diagnosis. So let's see how easy it is to play this video. So this is, I think it's a 5-minute video. Do we want to do the whole 5-minute video? Do we have time for a whole 5-minute video? You think, Maleva? Or do you think we should share this afterwards? What do you think?
I mean, we definitely have time, but if we want to share afterwards, we totally can as well. All
right, let's do it. So if you guys, if halfway through it you say like, let's keep going with the show, just throw a comment in the chat. But let's play this video, and we'll see how the audio sounds.
Imagine that you're suffering from a deadly disease, but the cure is sitting on the pharmacy shelf and no one knows it. Then an AI algorithm discovers your cure and saves your life.
Quite obviously, just want to stay alive. I want to be around to see my daughter grow and to grow old with my wife. So I'll do everything I can to help me with that goal.
This is Al's story.
In terms of when I first met him as a patient, that was in October of 2020 during the height of the COVID pandemic, when he presented to emergency with abdominal pain and fever. And at that time, of course, our first concern with anyone presenting with any unusual symptoms, especially with fever, was whether it might be related to COVID.
But it was worse than COVID. It was Castleman disease. Castleman's is a devastating disorder where your immune system attacks and then shuts down your vital organs for an unknown cause. Patients will gain over 70 pounds of fluid and experience knife-like pain from all the fluid accumulation.
Yeah, so I went from, I would say, a relatively healthy guy who was on no medications. And then within, I would say, a week, I started developing severe swelling, severe fevers. My abdomen became quite distended for really, no reason at all. And later I found out it was fluid.
Once we knew what the problem was, then we knew we needed to treat him right away. And I think sometimes with rare diseases, we can be a little bit hesitant to start treatment because, if it's not something that you've done before or seen before, it can take some time to figure out how you want to treat the person.
Al's doctors put him on the only FDA-approved therapy for Castleman disease, a drug called cetuximab. Unfortunately, the benefit did not last long.
Into remission for about a month. He went home, he was feeling much better, but then 6 or 7 weeks later, he had a relapse.
So unfortunately, the last 2.5 years have been periods of treatments, remissions, and relapse.
Realistically, we knew that we had very few options left, and I had consulted the palliative care team, and they had seen him at home, and he has a young family, and he had prepared his family for every possibility.
So you just want to stay alive. I want to be around to see, my daughter grow and to grow old with my wife. So I'll do everything I can to help me with that goal.
They were out of options, but maybe there was a drug that hadn't been tried yet that could work for him. A few years ago, we decided to go on a mission to try to find drugs that could be repurposed to treat Castleman disease. So the first thing we did is that we collect blood samples from Castleman's patients all over the world. We measured over 1,000 proteins in each one of those samples and used the power of artificial intelligence to find specific patient subgroups that could respond to existing medicines. One of those drugs that we discovered is a drug called adalimumab. It targets a protein called TNF that's important to your immune system. And based on this work, we believe that maybe adalimumab could be a treatment for Castleman disease patients. So when I got a call from Luke Chen just a few months ago saying, David, Al is on his last legs, we're not sure what to do, I was able to direct him to this study that we had published using artificial intelligence to point to TNF as a potential treatment approach.
It worked. He got better.
It was rather quickly the response of the treatment.
And went home. And he's been much better since then on the adalimumab.
We want to repeat what we did for Al and we've done for so many other patients by expanding our approach across all diseases. We launched Every Cure, a nonprofit organization on a mission to unlock the full potential of each and every drug to treat each and every disease possible. There were 3,000 drugs and there were 12,000 human diseases. So there are 36 million possible combinations of drugs for specific diseases. And amazingly, the top priority drug for Castleman disease is adalimumab, the exact same drug that we discovered in the laboratory. And what's so exciting is that we can look across the other 35 million scores for other diseases to find other promising hits to treat other patients just like Al.
We just don't have the time or the resources or the numbers to wait. And sometimes we need to take the best available translational science that we have and try and find medications and drugs that are already on the shelf.
I hope that people understand this, they support this in any way they can.
We need your help to save patients just like Al. Please consider donating funding, data, and services towards our mission so that no patient is told we've tried everything when there's a life-saving cure in the pharmacy shelf.
Nice, thanks, Malava. So I just threw a couple of links in the chat. I guess I think that sort of helps to put this more into perspective and give a bit more information. So I also wanted to highlight just sort of like why this is so important for Castleman disease, in addition to the fact that it's helping Castleman disease patients directly, in addition to the fact that I think all of us love the idea that we can make an impact, using the Castleman's approach for other diseases. It also very clearly and directly is building out analytical capabilities within our team for Castleman's. We're using approaches that we never even knew were possible, which can directly be applied to Castleman's. It's helping to raise awareness internationally about Castleman disease. Every cure has been able to get a lot of attention, and every time every cure is highlighted, Castleman's is highlighted, and it's really helping us to engage with leaders across healthcare. So, people from the FDA and the NIH and HHS and WHO and various leaders from around healthcare are becoming aware of what we're doing. And I think this is such a great step forward for the whole Castleman's field. Let's see. So now I will turn it over to Malava, our fearless warrior, mother, patient advocate, navigator, chief patient loved one, all in one.
All in one. Thanks, David. So I love this part because I actually get to highlight some of our patients. Some of these patients are just people I've actually had a chance to chat with more recently. And in one of the conversations we've had, I just asked what their thoughts were on the CDCN and the impact that we have had on them. So I get to kind of share back with you what they shared on how they are viewing our organization, which is really amazing to see that our reach continues to help all of you, everybody in the community, both patients and loved ones, family members. So I'm going to highlight a few of our patients and then chat through all the ways that you guys can help support on World Castleman Disease Day, but also just the organization in general. So the first person I want to highlight is Lisa. I do believe she's on the call. Yay!
Hey, Lisa!
So when we talk about the journey a patient can go through with our organization, it's really about the different aspects that they can join in to help. And that's these 5 things here. It's joining the CDCN network, donating to our biobank, joining our Accelerate Natural History Registry, becoming a member of our Warrior program, and also being in our discussion board. Lisa has done all of those things. And when I say that she's done them, she hasn't just enrolled it and that was it. She has gone full steam ahead in every aspect of all of this. And in addition to, she really has been super supportive on our social media channels. She's always chiming in. She's on all of our Warrior calls. And she's just a beautiful light and spirit that I really enjoy being able to interact with. And when I chatted with her about the CDCN, she had just shared that the CDCN is amazing and she's super grateful for the work that we're doing to find a cure for herself. And she's really excited that she was able to help coordinate the summit this year, and the CDCN has been her saving grace. When I hear those kind of things from you guys as a community, it's so inspiring to me, because when we're working behind the scenes and hoping that all of these things are helping you guys, it's really great to actually hear from our patients that the work that our team is doing really has made a direct difference. And so I just wanted to highlight Lisa, one, as a personal thank you from me for all that she has done to support all of you. But also just wanting to share a little bit about her story. And so she's the first person I wanted to highlight. Another patient that I've been chatting with a lot, she actually is in Germany. She's fantastic. She has really taken on an amazing role of helping to support all the people who are in Germany. So she helped translate our patient toolkit for into German for the patients over there. She really has supported all of our patients on social media. She's constantly reaching out on different ways that she can help support as well. And she's coming to Patient Summit this year, which is wonderful because we'll all be able to meet her in person. When I did get the chance to connect with her, she just shared that together we are strong. For me, CDCN is hope. It is sometimes a big struggle to get the right treatment understanding. CDCN is a huge anchor for me and gives her power. And she loves the slogan, turning hope into action. Another original warrior that we have here is Shannon. Shannon has shared that the CDCN is very important to me because of the ups and downs that she's had with her own battle. The CDCN gives her strength to know that we always have her back, and that we continue to look for causes for Castleman disease, that we also continue to do clinical trials. And she finds strength deep in herself to choose not to give up every single day. She's been a warrior for 10 years, and she continues to feel stronger than ever. Shannon has been with us from the start. She's also going to be at Summit this year with her family, which is wonderful. We haven't seen her in a bit, so it'll be really great to be able to connect with her. But I also wanted to highlight her as well because she is constantly, like I had mentioned with the other ones, super involved. She's a big supporter of all of our patients and loved ones on social media. She's a member of our warrior team and really provides great insight on ways that we can continue to improve, not only in communication, but different things that we're doing with our summit in our community. She's had some amazing ideas on fundraising. And so she's just really a wonderful example, as all of you are, on how our patients really come together and rally with each other and just continue to drive our organization forward. And the last patient I wanted to highlight today is Andrew. Andrew McGill is another one of our original patients. He's been with us for a long time as well, for the last 6 or 7 years. So Andrew shares that he was diagnosed with Castleman disease. His doctors didn't have any information. He joined the CDCN and started learning all about the disease. He attended his first ever patient and loved one summit and met his new family, not just other patients, but the staff of the CDCN are the people that saved my life by educating me on the disease and allowing me to become my own health advocate. The reason why I wanted to highlight him is because one of the great updates that he's more recently shared is that after years of treatment, he's finally in remission for the last 5 years. He feels that it's his responsibility to continue to teach new patients about the disease and how to advocate for themselves. Through the CDCN, he has learned the most about his disease and new research, and there's no doubt in his mind that without the CDCN, he and many others would not be alive today. Andrew, again, has been super involved in our community. He's constantly reaching out to me when he has connected with another patient down in Florida, asking what he can do, asking about different doctors he can help connect them with. If he sees somebody on social media, he immediately connects them with me. He's just always there and always doing everything he absolutely positively can to help support all of you. And in turn, it really helps us continue to provide the amazing support that we can for you guys as well. And so now I kind of want to chat with you guys on ways that you guys can help, again, not just on World Castleman Disease Day, but in general on joining in the fight. So for World Castleman Disease Day, like we've mentioned a few times, you guys can donate or just help us spread that word for other people in your networks to donate. They can do that at cdcn.org/donate. Like we had mentioned before, we do have that wonderful match ability this time. So all donations that are raised this year will be matched up to $7,500, which is wonderful. It really gives us the ability to have a large impact this year. And I'm really hoping that we can see the growth continue from last year onto this year. Another big thing that you can do on that day is wear blue, or the shirts that you guys have already purchased. If you guys are big social media people and don't mind sharing, post a picture of you doing that warrior flex in blue if possible. If not in blue, that's okay. Warrior flex is amazing. Share that on your own personal pages. You can share that in the Castleman support groups. You can use the hashtags here. There's going to be an email that will go out to the whole entire community with all of this information in it so that you guys don't have to try to remember everything. But the biggest thing is, like, my favorite part about World Castleman Disease Day is looking on social media and just seeing the fact that we flooded all of the channels with blue and with all of these hashtags and with our warrior flexes. And it's just a really great way for us to be able to raise awareness. And finally, like spreading the word, telling your friends, family, colleagues all about Castleman disease. I know that we as a community, we kind of do that anyway. We're always chatting with our friends, family, people who are checking in with us about the disease, but specifically on World Castleman Disease Day, it's really an amazing way to try to continue to spread that awareness even further. And for all the people who were able to support the fundraising campaign that we did, all proceeds from that go back directly towards research. So we had mentioned a few times over several posts that when you do purchase a shirt, we as an organization get a certain percentage of that back. All of that percentage back to us goes directly towards research. And I want to say so far we've raised about $800 just on the fundraising campaign, which is amazing. So thank you all of you who were able to purchase those shirts so far. This will also go out in the email as well, but this is just about spreading the word. So these are graphics that you guys will be able to share. One, to really promote that match. Again, it's a wonderful way for us as a community to be able to raise as much money as we possibly can and have it be matched up to $7,500. And then in addition, you guys as patients, some of the amazing ways that you guys can continue to help join in the fight is if you have not yet, enroll into our Accelerate Natural History Registry. I think the link has already been shared, but it's cdcn.org/accelerate. You can also connect with Bridget to donate samples if you haven't been able to do that yet. A lot of our newly diagnosed patients who first connect with myself or Bridget, that's one of the first things we chat with you about is, while you're sick or while you're newly diagnosed fighting your disease, it's such a wonderful way for us to be able to take what's specific to you, literally locked inside of your body, and be able to get a blood sample from that and then study that and determine what's the differences between what's going on in your body and what's going on with somebody else. Again, I'm mentioning just donating to help raise funds to accelerate that research and then sharing on social media. I'm really driving this home, guys. I really want to make sure everybody knows. These are the three most impactful ways that our organization continues to be able to drive forward our life-saving research. So it is not just about the money that's donated to us, but it's really about being able to see the specific things that each one of you as patients have solely to yourself. So when we're able to look at all of your medical records, it allows us not to just see specifically what your labs look like, but your whole entire diagnostic journey from start to finish, seeing like what you were misdiagnosed with initially, seeing the different things that you guys have gone to the doctors for and the different symptoms that you guys have had. In addition to that, donating those blood samples, those three things together really allow us to continue to drive forth all of our research and put out all of the new papers that we're constantly putting out, the information that we learned about unicentric Castleman disease. All of those things stem from the fact that you guys have shared your medical records and also your blood samples. So now I want to chat a little bit about Summit, but before I do that, I just wanted to share a really awesome promotional video about Summit. It's going to really you new patients, give you a really quick glimpse into what the Summit is about, and then I can share a little bit about how you guys can register if you haven't already done so.
When we think about the Patient Summit, we always say that this is our Super Bowl. Super Bowl is the biggest weekend of the year when sort of all of your training and all of your hard work comes together and you have this opportunity to do everything you can. And that's really what this weekend is for us with the CDCN. We get patients together with our amazing researchers, with our team from the CDCN, and we get to talk about Castleman disease. We get to talk about the research that we've been doing. We get to forge forward a path for how we're going to continue to push forward against Castleman disease over the next decade. I co-founded the CDCN with Dr. Fritz Van Riet here today.
I think it's been an amazing journey. A lot has been accomplished. We've brought together patients, their families, physicians, scientists. We discovered new drugs. We developed treatment guidelines, diagnostic guidelines.
The goal and the vision is a world where every patient diagnosed with Castleman disease receives a therapy so they can live a full life.
Awesome. So for those who have not ever attended a patient summit before and either have registered or have not had the chance to register yet, the summit is one of my favorite times of the year, and I want to speak for our team as well. I do believe it really is a favorite time for all of us. It's bringing together patients, loved ones, community members to Philadelphia, where we're then able to kind of provide a day of education, research updates, insight into what the CDCN is doing. But on a bigger scale, it's really about bringing you guys together to meet other people who are going through the same thing that you're going through. And I can speak for a lot of our original patients who have been here for the last decade, or, at least the last 5-6 years. It is one of their favorite times as well, because they come and they're able to be back with their Castleman family. They share with each other, they're communicating throughout the year, and the ability to come back to one place in one location and just spend the weekend together is super impactful. For the new patients, you're really going to leave probably feeling a little bit overeducated. We share so much information and really important research updates, subtype breakout sessions where we'll have very specific to people who have idiopathic, multicentric Castleman disease, unicentric, and then our HHV8 associated patients. These educational sessions are really about making sure that you have a really good understanding about the disease that you're battling. In addition to that, and one of a really fan favorite, I will say, is our expert physician panel. So we'll have several expert physicians here attending in person, sitting on a panel where our community is allowed to sit there and just ask them questions. It's really impactful because you'll be able to not only ask a question that you personally have, but hear all of the questions asked from everybody else in the community. And then get that response from those physicians. It's a huge, a very wide group of patients and loved ones from all over the world this year. We have a lot of international people coming as well. And like I said, it's my personal favorite. And so if you have not yet registered, you can go to cdcn.org/summit. If you have already registered, we're so excited to see you in just 3 weeks, 21 days from today. So it is coming up really fast. We have some amazing changes that have happened this year, to include moving to a different venue where everything is all in one place. So it's hotel upstairs. Our conference is going to be downstairs. Great food being provided. All of our team members will be there in support of this amazing day. Mary, myself, and Dr. Fagenbaum will all be there to kind of host and really be able to celebrate with all of you. If you have any questions about this, you can ask any member of our team, but I'm always here to help support you guys. So you can reach me by phone, my email, which somebody can throw in the chat, and I will help you guys register and get all the way through the process to get here. And then again, if you can't attend in person, that's okay. There is a Zoom component to it as well. And we'll be able to send you all the Zoom links leading up to the event so that you can still tune in and really learn from the important information that we'll be sharing. And I just wanted to throw this up here. These are the really important links or ways to connect with each member of our team. So for Accelerate, this is an email that will go directly to Chriswell. She'll be able to kind of help address any questions that you guys have about enrolling into the registry. For Samples, this connects you to Bridget, and most of you have connected with her. Bridget's fantastic. She leads the charge for not just Samples, but honestly really helping to support all of our patients as well. So you can reach her at castlebank@uphs.upenn.edu. That's my contact information, and also just general questions about the CDCN, diagnosis, anything that you have that isn't very specific to those 3 buckets, you can email info@castlemannetwork.org. And then again, just driving home that we can't do this without all of the donations that are made to help move forward our life-saving research. So to just spread that word to anybody in your network, it's cdcn.org/donate. And that's one of the ways that people can help support for World Castleman Disease Day. And now we're at our Ask Us Anything session. So I'm actually going to stop sharing, because that way we can kind of see everybody. You can either throw things in the chat and I can read them out loud, or if you have a question, you can unmute yourself and just ask it directly. And I'm going to kind of kick things over to the community.
What questions do you guys have for us?
I have a question about when people are doing birthday fundraisers for CDCN. I know my mom did one and my nephew's doing one right now. How do we know you guys actually get that money?
So you can rest assured that we receive the funds because we have an account through Facebook. But one thing to know is that we don't know the names of the donors. So if someone donates through Facebook, Facebook just sends the money to the CDCN, but they don't send any names. It's part of their effort to, protect privacy of donors. And so that means that we won't be able to add their email address to our stuff. And so just know that we get it. I mean, and of course, Maleva can check with you specifically. We could look at the amount that was raised, and then we could look at our account to see that the right amount was transferred. But I presume, I assume it was, because we've been known this for years. But the one downside, is we just don't know the names or the email addresses, so we can't thank them, which might be why you might be unsure, if it's even getting to us. But you can rest assured that it is getting to us.
Okay, well, that's good to know. And that was exactly it. I didn't realize they didn't tell you where it came from.
No, all it is it's a monthly amount. So every birthday gets, added up and then gets sent over, and they don't send any names or email addresses. But I will say that birthday fundraisers have been amazing for the CDCN over the years. Myself and many other people do these birthday fundraisers, and they really do add up. And for each one of us, it might be a small amount, but when you add them up together, it really is quite substantial. So thanks to everyone who does those.
What a good idea, because my birthday's Saturday.
Oh,
There you
yeah,
go.
amazing.
Happy
Good,
birthday.
yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah,
It's
so that's a
amazing.
good idea. Good thing. Good. I would have never thought of that, but I'm doing it. I'm
It's
I
doing
love
it.
it. And it
It's a
helps to
really
raise
easy
awareness
way.
too, right? Because everyone that's like thinking about donating, they're going to read about it first, and they might tell someone. I love it.
Oh yeah, cool.
There was a question thrown into the chat, David, that says, has there been any research into a connection with Castleman's and HPV infections?
There hasn't. So the connection that does exist that's really strong is HHV8 or KSHV and multicenter Castleman disease. It's very clear. It's causative for about a quarter of multicenter Castleman's patients. By causative meaning like the virus causes the Castleman's. But for the rest of us, with the people that have what we call idiopathic multicentric, we don't know what's causing it. We know that it's not that virus. We haven't found any other viruses. HPV has not come up on any of our screens. We've been looking for viruses long and hard, and we haven't actually found any yet.
I got a question. My son Nicholas seems to think that his idiopathic Castleman's came from working all night, not getting enough sleep, not eating right, stress. Do you think that could be a contributing factor to this?
It's a great. Oh, sorry, Celia. I was gonna say it's a great question, and it's something I've thought about a lot over the years. I've sort of struggled with. I was at like the busiest, most stressful point in my life. I was a med student when I got sick, and so I think it's possible. I think that all of us like to have we like to sort of understand why bad things happen to us. So I think we want it to be something that we did, because that's like a little bit easier to understand, and it might be. But I think there's also, sweet Katie Rapaski was, not even 2 years old. So she wasn't studying for med school exams. She wasn't stressing about the world when she got Castleman's, right? And so it's hard to know what causes it when we don't have a clear cause. But I do say, when people ask that question, it's like, well, moving forward, let's do what we can to make sure that we're sleeping well, that we're eating right, that we're, exercising, do the things that we can control. But I definitely wouldn't want anyone in the Castleman's community to beat themselves up about maybe I work too hard or I work too many night shifts or something, because there's really not anything that's telling us that that's a problem. But again, there's nothing to say that it's not the problem. I wouldn't want him to feel guilty about that.
Yeah, he does, but
David,
but
I wanted
he's doing well. He's doing very well. I just want to throw that in there. Nikki's doing very well.
amazing. Is Nikki joining you at Summit?
I told him he has to. We got to give blood, and we have to be there.
Love
And
it.
I still have to book our room, so and I get a discount being a federal employee, so
Awesome.
I got to do that. But we're going to be there. Yeah, we're going to
Amazing.
be there.
Amazing. David, there was a question asked quite earlier. I'm going to read the whole thing just so I don't lose anything. It says, Castleman disease, never heard of it. What I've heard from every doctor, nurse, and staff I've encountered over the last 4 months since March of this year, I've been diagnosed with Castleman disease and then POEMs, along with multiple myeloma after a bone marrow biopsy was done. Having a hard time understanding how it all kind of relates to each other, if at all. I asked the question of the doctor today, and the response was, well, I conferred with your doctor at Ohio State, and he said it's POEMs driving the Castleman's. And then after I do my 4 rounds of Revlimid, I will have a bone marrow transplant and then I'll be cured. I'm really feeling lost as to what treatment I should actually be on. Looking forward to learning more at the summit.
Yeah, this is an important question. And thanks for reading that, Lova. So I mentioned earlier that one form of multicenter Castleman disease is caused by a virus, HHV8. There's also another form of Castleman disease separate from idiopathic, where we actually know the cause, and that's people that have POEMS syndrome. So POEMS is basically cancer of the plasma cells. So it's a type of immune cell in your body. It's like lymphoma. When you have POEMS syndrome, you've got a cancerous cell population, and those cells produce a lot of bad factors called cytokines and these proteins that make you really sick. And so they actually call the cancerous cells are causing the Castlemans in that case. And so, as I was saying earlier, Castlemans can be caused by virus, it can be caused by cancer, and it can occur for idiopathic unknown causes. And so, unfortunately, what it sounds like from this patient is that they have this small fraction of Castlemans that's caused by this cancer, which is called POEMS syndrome. And the doctor is correct that in those cases, we recommend treating the cancer, the POEMS, because then the Castlemans will improve if you treat the underlying problem. And so rather than using a drug like siltuximab, which is what's recommended for idiopathic MCD, you use drugs like Revlimid, Velcade, thalidomide, drugs that are typically targeted at what are called plasma cell neoplasias, so cancers of the plasma cells. And so that doctor is correct in saying, let's target those cells, and also correct in considering doing what's called an autologous stem cell transplant, because there are a lot of patients that do really well after the autologous stem cell transplant. Now, it's still important. I always believe it's important to get a second opinion. So I think it's really reasonable what your doctors said, but making a trip to Little Rock to see Dr. Van Ree, to come to Penn to see Dr. Brandstandler, to go to Emory to see Mary Jo Lekowitz, to go to one of these people to get a second opinion, or actually in your case with POEMS, it would be great to see Angela Dispensieri at the Mayo Clinic in Minnesota. She's really like the world's expert for POEMS syndrome. So I think it's always important, if you can get to the expert, we can help you get there in terms of helping to identify who they are. I think it is worth doing. So I think your doctor's on the right track, but I would always recommend getting a second opinion.
Awesome. Thanks, David. Another question that was just thrown in is, out of curiosity, is it normal to have a lot of misdiagnosis or even specialists not be 100% on the diagnosis that you have?
Yeah, so this is one of the reasons why we really want a blood test, is that because right now, to make the diagnosis, you need a doctor to look at a piece of your lymph node, and you cut out the lymph node, look at it on the microscope, and it has to look a certain way. And it was described to me once by she's the top pathologist in the world. Her name's Elaine Jaffe, and she said, finding Castlemans is like looking at a Monet painting and being able to say, oh, it looks like Monet. But I can't really tell you why. It just looks like a Monet painting versus like a Picasso painting. It just looks that way. And I was like, no, that's horrible. We can't have it. We need measurements, and we need to be able to say what's different here. We can't just say, oh, it looks different. It looks like Castleman's, right? So we spent a lot of time back in 2017 trying to pull out of her brain, what is it about the lymph node in Castleman's that makes you say it looks like Castleman's, or it looks more like a Monet painting, right? Versus not. And so we've been able to get a lot of that out of these pathologists' brains, but at the end of the day, it's really quite subjective. One person looks at a painting and says, oh, that looks like Monet. Another person looks at it, says, looks like Picasso. And if you don't have a blood test to say, it's Castleman's or it's not, or you don't have some sort of definitive marker, then, we're back the way things were 70 years ago in medicine, where you're just looking for patterns. And we need to be where we should be, which is where there's blood tests that can be run, where there's what are called molecular diagnostics. So we're hot on the case. We're working hard on it. Probably everyone on this call, if you're given a blood sample, your sample is going to be part of figuring it out. But unfortunately, we're not there yet in terms of having an easy diagnosis. So what that means is every one of us on this call, if we have been told we have Castleman's, that means it's very likely we have Castleman's. But for every one of us on this call, there's also a chance that maybe we don't, that maybe we have something else, because again, the diagnosis is so hard to make when it's subjective like this. We don't have a specific blood test. That's what leads to uncertainty.
David, I actually got a question sent over via Facebook Messenger that says, can Castleman's be caused by HHV6?
It cannot. HHV8 is the only one is the only virus that is known to cause Castleman's.
Great, thank you. Anybody else have questions that you guys want to ask of myself, Dr. Fagenbaum, or our team here online now?
Can I tell Dr. David a quick story?
Sure. I love stories. But before you tell the story, real quick comment is that Andrew just wrote in the chat, Andrew from Bermuda wrote in the chat that he has POEMS syndrome. And so the patient who mentioned also having POEMS, please reach out to Andrew. I believe Andrew doing a lot better right now and feeling much better. And he's received some, I would say, sort of more experimental treatment approaches because he was really sick and they needed to figure out something for him, and he's doing well. So whoever it was that mentioned their POEMS, Andrew is in the chat, and Mileva could probably connect you, the two of you, by email. I didn't see who it was that mentioned that they have POEMS before Andrew, but we can help connect you.
Absolutely. Michelle, you could share your story, and then I have a couple of questions I'll ask after.
Okay. So as you guys know, my daughter was in 3 hospitals for 5 months, and it was a crazy journey. And in the main medical center, every 7 days you get a new doctor. That's just the way it works. And we had this one doctor. He was very analytical. He was the best doctor out of all of them we had seen in 5 months. And unfortunately, he ordered some lymph node biopsies and a bunch of different tests. And the next doctor that came on canceled them all and said my daughter was a perfectly healthy 36-year-old. Well, when we finally found out what happened and what was going on, I wanted to thank this doctor, and I called him and I wanted him to know what my daughter had. And when I talked to him, he said, I had no idea that the next doctor canceled her, biopsies. And I was like, yes. And he goes, what was your daughter's diagnosis? And I said, Castleman's disease. And he goes, oh my God, Castleman's disease? And I said, yes. And he goes, I didn't think she had Castleman's disease, but I was testing for it because, do you know Dr. David Fagenbaum? And I was like, yes. And he said, he was my classmate. And I saw what he went through. And I knew that your daughter had a lot of his symptoms. And that's why I wanted that biopsy.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
It's so crazy. And I don't know if you remember him, and I don't even know if I'm pronouncing his name right, but it was Dr. Hani Darawan.
Yeah, of course. Oh my gosh. Wow. What a small world. Well, I'm so glad that it's gone in the right direction. That is a small world. Wow. Well, as you all know, whether the person was a classmate of mine or they've just come anywhere within a mile of me, someone's heard about Castleman's from me. So I'm glad that it resulted in this diagnosis.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, it didn't, because they took him off the case.
There you go.
True.
But he was just, you could feel like the emotion from him too, explaining the story to me and saying that he knew who he was and he just thought that my daughter might have that. So it just, when I was talking to him, made me cry, and it's going to make me cry now.
Wow.
Well, you have definitely come to the right place, and we're really happy to be able to support you and your daughter, and hopefully continue to get you guys on the right path and getting her feeling a lot better, and excited to see you both at Summit, which I really think will be impactful for the two of you.
Yes, I can't wait. And I know no one really knows us, but my offer does stand. Me and my husband are getting there earlier than most people. And if people need rides from the airport, don't pay $50 to get a 15-minute ride. Just send me a message. We'll pick you up.
That's awesome.
That's fantastic. David, I did want to ask the last couple questions before we sign off for the
Sure.
night. One was, could you explain the importance of IL-10 and IL-6?
Sure. So everyone on this call, whether you have Castleman disease or you don't have Castleman disease, you all use IL-6 to help to fight off things. And so it's one of your immune system's favorite, you can think about it as a weapon. Like, your immune system loves to use IL-6 to fight things off. We all do, all humans do. In Castleman disease, we tend to make more IL-6 than other people do, and it tends to cause problems. And so everything in your body is good until a point, and then over that point, it's bad. And so same thing with IL-6. So it's good to fight off this infection or that infection, but too much of it, you start having organ dysfunction. IL-10 is like the reverse IL-6. And so when you are making lots of IL-6, if you make a lot of IL-10, it'll inhibit the IL-6. And so it's sort of like yin for yang, right? You've got a lot of IL-6. IL-10 is your anti-inflammatory cytokine. And so a lot of times patients with Castleman's will have really high IL-10, and they or their doctors will think, well, maybe that's the problem in my Castleman's, but actually that's your body fighting really hard to sort of counteract all of the inflammation that's happening. So you would never want to block IL-10, because if anything, IL-10 is actually trying to calm down your immune system. And so anyway, IL-6 is the problem, problem child. IL-10 is sort of trying to control it. So when IL-6 goes really high, IL-10 is going to go really high as well, in an effort to try to control the inflammation.
Awesome. Another question, we actually get this question a lot, is do we know if there is a hereditary link between Castleman disease?
Not yet, but I will say that I'm guessing most people on this call, and according to our registry, less than 2% of all patients with Castleman disease, it might even be less than 1% now, have a family member with Castleman disease. And so though we haven't discovered a clear genetic link, right now it appears that it's very unlikely that there is what's called Mendelian inheritance, meaning that if you have the gene, you get the disease. And so that's what it suggests. However, two caveats to that is that one is that many Castleman's patients do not end up having children. So we don't sort of get to do the experiment of seeing whether the child has the disease. And I say experiment, meaning like we don't get to learn from the idea, because if you don't have a child, you don't know if your child would have gotten it or not. In my case, I've got two beautiful, healthy children, 1 year old and 4 years old. And I hope and believe and pray that they'll never have Castleman's. The data also suggests that they won't, right? Less than 1% of people with Castleman's have a family member with Castleman's. So the data supports that. But I will say the reason we're still looking for a genetic link is that even if there isn't a genetic change that causes your Castleman disease, there could still be a genetic change that increases your risk of developing Castleman disease. And that would be really helpful for us to know. Like maybe your problem in Castleman's is that your IL-10 doesn't work that well. So like you have a genetic change, so IL-10 doesn't work. So the more IL-6 you make IL-10, but it doesn't work well. And so that's the problem here. I'm just sort of throwing that idea out there. But so we're going to keep looking for genetic changes, even though it doesn't appear that there's one gene that is the problem here.
Amazing. Another question is, will IMCD with TAFRO always have ascites attached to it?
Yeah, so patients who have TAFRO, which is a subtype of IMCD, is the subtype that I have, we tend to gain lots and lots of fluid. That's truly one of the first symptoms, and it's sort of the last symptom also. So ascites is fluid in your belly. And yes, unfortunately, I'm not aware of anyone with TAFRO who has had a relapse or has had active disease where they haven't gained a lot of fluid.
Awesome. Thanks, David. And a couple questions were just centered around Summit. So I was just going to address them kind of all in one fell swoop. So at Summit, we will address the specific subtypes that exist of IMCD, unicentric, and then HHV8 positive. There'll be a breakout session where the people who have that diagnosis will go separately into individual rooms and hear from an expert specific to that subtype, so that you can really get impactful education on that specific subtype. In addition to that, all of those sessions will be recorded, so you'll be able to have that information after the fact. Also, that tonight is also recorded. So for those of you who just wanted to have the recording to share with family members who could not log on today, I will be sending that out tomorrow to everybody, but also it will be posted to our Facebook social media pages as well. And then at Summit, every single session, not just subtypes, will be recorded. And when Summit is over, we'll be able to share all of those recordings out with our whole entire community. So if you are an IMCD patient who was in there but wanted to learn about other subtypes, you have that ability. But also if you were in just the main sessions where we're really covering a lot of information and you just wanted to be able to reference back to that, you'll be able to do that as well.
Great. Another thing. I'm just going to make a quick comment just about the ascites. So when I say that my answer before, if you get your disease into remission, those ascites goes away. So like for me, like my ascites is gone. Many TAFRO patients, the ascites is gone. So if you can get the disease in remission with treatment, it will go away. But I guess my comment, I might have misunderstood, is that if it comes back, ascites will always be a part of it when it comes back. But the goal, and as we said earlier, the goal for all of us with Castleman disease is to feel the way we felt before we got Castleman's, to have every symptom go away. For some of us, it's not possible. And that's why we work really hard in doing our research so that we can get a right treatment for you. But for some of us, it is possible. And so that's our goal. We want to get all of us back to how we felt beforehand, living long, full, healthy, happy lives. So if that's not happening right now, I can promise you we're going to work on it more. And we want to work with you to make sure that does happen.
Absolutely.
Can I ask one question about the Tafro? I've seen all of the symptoms or blood tests or whatever it is you need, and I believe that that's the one my daughter has, but the doctor has never mentioned that. The original hospital told her she had IMCD, and we actually see Dr. Munchie, who is a great doctor, but we've never asked him about that, and he's never mentioned it. Would that mean that she doesn't have that, or that they just aren't addressing it?
Yeah, it's a good question. The easiest way to distinguish Tafro versus non-Tafro is just how low do the platelets go when the patient gets sick. If the platelets go really low when you get sick, you almost certainly have Tafro. If they stay normal or go high, you don't have Tafro. There's a lot of other stuff. It's a whole acronym, the TAFRO, but really platelets can sort of tell you just quick and easy, do you have Tafro or not?
Okay.
And then in terms of, I see there's a question about the best cheesesteak in Philly. There's lots of debate about the best cheesesteak in Philly. So I'm not willing to vote right now, but because there's lots of controversy. But Pat's and Gino's are the two most famous, but then everyone says you shouldn't go to them because they're tourist traps. So anyway, we can put addresses in the packets that you get for Summit, so you can figure out where you could go. And I don't know, I feel like Penny probably has a good cheesesteak place. Penny, where's your cheesesteak place?
I am on a mission, by the way. I am on a mission to find the best cheesesteak in Philly at this point.
I like Pat's.
Okay.
I've heard that one, so that's good.
You got to keep from getting shot though when you go down there.
Well, I will tell you guys, our warrior group really helped plan aspects of our patient summit this year, one of which is our warrior welcome, which is Thursday night. During the warrior welcome, what they really wanted to see was it be all about welcome to Philadelphia. So the food we're giving you guys Thursday night has cheesesteaks, it has popcorn, it has Philadelphia pretzels, and so it's really all about like trying the Philly food. So hopefully the one you eat there will be amazing. It will not be from Pat's or Gino's, so you don't have to pick a side. One of the comments that were thrown in the chat from a member of our team, Christopher, said Delco Steaks in Franklin's table, which is right by the study, has really good cheesesteaks. So that might be a good place for you to try. But yes, you will get to dabble a little bit in some Philly food Thursday night if you're here, which is amazing.
I will be here
I love
Thursday,
that.
so love it.
Final question, and I can just address it, is when do we guys send off the packets for the summit? So if you're attending in person, you're physically going to be handed your packet. It's actually a booklet this year with everything kind of all in one place when you arrive. If you're attending virtually, you're going to get it both 10 days prior and 2 days prior. It's a virtual packet that has everything that you would need to know to fully attend and be a part of the patient summit if you're attending via Zoom.
Nice.
Any final questions for our team before we do our warrior flex photo?
That's right, we got a flex.
Okay, awesome. I need everybody who wants to, no pressure, turn on your camera. And we are
Carlos, I love the flex. Looking good.
Hi, Carlos.
I love the flex.
Yes, so David can model real quick. That's the flex. We're going to do a nice flex photo. So on the count of 3, everybody is going to do that. I'm going to take a snapshot of all of you. On the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Do it one more time because we have too many people on this call. 1, 2, 3. Amazing.
Nice. Thanks, everyone. Thanks so much, Maleva. We cannot wait to see many of you in a few weeks, whether it's in person or virtual. Thank you guys so much for joining in. And remember, Sunday is World Castleman Disease Day. So tell everyone that you see all weekend long that it's Celia's birthday and that it's World Castleman Disease Day. And let's raise a lot of awareness.
Amazing. Thanks, David. Thanks, community. We love you guys, and we'll see you in 21 days if you're coming to Summit.
Bye, guys.
Thanks so much.
Guys.
Bye.
Good night. Thank you.